And I know this might be getting a little bit off topic, but you piqued my curiosity. So what drives those numbers, those like first patient in, all those numbers that we at the bottom feel like, who came up with this?
Who came up with this first site? So I mean, for cycle time. So what I mean, we could just pick one. I mean, first subject in is one we all know that is very critical. It's a very critical cycle time. So from the time that we finish the protocol to when we get our first subject in, because a lot of times, whether you're a publicly traded company, not publicly traded company, you provide that information, some depending on the situation, to your investors or to their community, saying, hey, this is when I'm going to start something. It's kind of like if you owned a restaurant and you're telling someone this is going to be my grand opening, right? Okay. My grand opening is going to be November 1st. But what if you don't open until November 30th?
That makes sense. You're right.
That's what I try. So you're going to learn a little bit about me. I try to make things very relevant to people because everybody is in different levels and they're different backgrounds. So I pick something that everybody can relate to.
That makes sense. Everybody else on the restaurant on the
right.
And it's closed.
Have you ever built a home before or had a house that was going to close? When they give you that closing date, you want to close on that date because you don't schedule the movers, you don't schedule to move up to your apartment, whatever. And it's we just gonna push it 5 days. No, you can't push my closing date. I got plans in place.
That makes sense.
That's kind of why those dates are so important. They have domino effects that leads all the way up to registration, submissions, all types of things. That first subject in now leads to your last subject in. Your last subject in is to your database lock, and your database locks, all the way to your table, all of those things, they're domino effect. So if you keep pushing out the first date, it's going to push out everything at the end. And then, we don't want to do that. So it's not good in our industry. And so now how we come up with them, we try to look at what the industry median is, the top quartile, and we pick is first from the final approved protocol to first subject in date for this disease, this indication. Where should we be? How many days should that be? Should that be 120 days? There's different metrics that are out there that are benchmark, CMR benchmark data. And those are what companies are trying to focus on.
Okay. That makes sense. So it's not like they literally try to pick the hardest timeline possible type of strategy.
No, it's not. Yeah, we said we can do this in about 3 to 4 months. We should probably be able to do this in about 3 to 4 months. I think what happens is I think that as a CRA, and I'll be very transparent with you, you probably weren't aware of when the final approved protocol was. Like that date probably didn't hit you. Like, what is the FAP date? What was the final approved protocol date? And then realize from that date, everything triggered the next timelines. You probably didn't think. I know when I was CRA, I didn't even think about it. I would look and see what that final approved date was. Final approved protocol date was the date, that was on there. But it didn't do anything for me for us to triggering something. But it triggers the domino timeline of the next metrics.
And that makes sense. But then it also makes me think about, and I know every therapeutic area is a little bit different, especially comparing oncology to the rest of the world, areas. Right. But just thinking about what you just said about the protocol approval date, then there comes the site getting their site level protocol approval. And for oncology sites, the larger institutions, like MDA, Moffitt, places like that, they have like these strict rules of how often they meet, and then they have internal approvals and, like all this with the contract negotiations. Like Emory one time, I think they took like almost a year to finally get the contract worked out. So when you start factoring in things like that, thinking about what you just said about the protocol approval date, if you have that date, but then if the site doesn't get site level approval for another year, then that like messes everything up, right?
It does. What we try to do is factor in our central sites, our local sites, our different countries, how long is it going to take to get up, Asia Pac, Europe country, whatever. We try to factor all that in so that we have our site activation timeline, so that we'll have this many sites activated this month, this many sites activated this month, this many sites activated this month. And what we're looking at is what has been the norm for those countries, for those sites, and so forth. What is their historical benchmark? And you're right. Some sites have a very long contractual agreements and other processes. I remember when I worked at a site, I was a study coordinator, but it was a central RB. So when we didn't do oncology, it was asthma and allergy. So we were pretty quick. But you're right. There are certain institutions that they don't have those same types of situations, and it is a lot longer. So we try to factor all that in. And I know as a CRA, it's a lot of pressure on you guys because you're like, get your sites activated, get them enrolling, get your data in. It's always like pressure, pressure, pressure. And then you've got multiple sites. I remember, gosh, but luckily you got it now with the GPS. And I was like, I was like, pull out the map and drive and 3-ply NCR paper. Come on, you guys got.
Oh my God, I can only imagine.
You guys don't know nothing about this hard work, and we did our own regulatory documents. We did every. Only thing I didn't do was contracts. I did regulatory documents. I did everything, PI payments, all of that we had to do. Yes, we did it all when we was CRAs. Y'all just don't understand. It was difficult. But you guys don't. We didn't have the complexities and the rules and the regulation. Like they're a lot more stringent now. So I recognize that it's a lot more difficult for CRAs today. But what we want and what I one day is help that CRAs still continue to keep owning that relationship, owning to be able to get the patients in, get the data in, get the data clean, have the quality. Because all of that, because you imagine doing all of that and we have like tons of deviations and we can't do anything with that data and we have to throw it out. I think that piece is just, I don't think people realize that. So again, I tell them again, what if you owned a business and you had someone making all of your product and it's like, oh, we're just going to mess up a batch of 100 of whatever it is you make. And that's going to be that much of your revenue you can't do. You're like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah. And that is a big problem. I've been on several studies where that was the case, where we had to, one study actually had to be remonitored 3 times because of that. I've been on sites where like they've had like 100 deviations. They were minor, but if you keep repeating the same thing, that's major.
Yeah,
so,
it's sad.
Yeah. And it's, and I think also a part of it, I know the pharma industry, like if you work directly for pharma, is not quite as intense, but especially with the larger CROs, everything is like visit driven. That's your metric. And so, most of the time you have too many sites. So it's hard to focus on quality when you're constantly hearing, well, you only had 10 days this month, 10 days on site this month. Like, we need to see how we can get you 2 more, or, it's hard to focus on that because that literally is what drives your performance, is those numbers, not necessarily quality. As bad as it sounds, it's numbers. So
I want to ask you a question. So you're telling me that, and I've heard this because I used to be at a CRA. So I remember when I used to do these numbers as a CRA, director, CRA manager director, is that we say that we need you to do this many visits a month because it drove the revenue for you. And so, but you're saying that, but we also wanted quality, but you're saying it's kind of hard to do that sometimes when you're like told that you got to have this many visits a month. I used to hear when people say, well, I'm only allowed an 8-hour day, but it really takes me 2 days to monitor this site. It might be 8 hours at this site because the data is all clean. They know how to have everything ready for me and all of it. But it's like we just put a straight 8-hour day for everyone, but not every site's the same. So it's kind of like a house cleaner, Some houses, you can have the exact same house, the same number of rooms, but cleaning the hoarder's house and cleaning the lady who's real clean, but you still only get so many days to clean the same 2 houses. That's I'm going to have to use that example going forward. That's another good example. Same house, same type of house, same number of rooms. I get it.
Yep. And that's another point too, a good point too, that you brought up, because there's some sponsors based upon how much they've contracted out, even though you might need a whole week, but they only want to approve 1 or 2 days. And each day, like you said, is 8 hours. So of course you're never going to catch up with the data if you need more days and you can't get it just based off of the contractual agreement. There's all those like behind the scenes things that make it so complicated and so challenging to focus on meeting those metrics, meeting those deliverables, all those things, and then also still focusing on quality. It's like something has to give, not to mention the workload most of the time is not reasonable. There was a time where I had 7 protocols and 50 sites, literally.
Wow.
Literally. And if you can imagine, like, how are you supposed to keep up with that?
How can we do better?
I was having this conversation with a colleague in the industry the other day, actually, and I don't know if it's reasonable, but I feel like there's a huge disconnect between CRAs and then the people at the top that make the decisions. Fortunately, there's people like you who has been in all these roles, so you totally get it. But most of your peers, like they weren't ever, most definitely not a study coordinator. You might find a CRA here and there. But even that, they just have no clue. So in their mind, it's like, I don't get it. I can't remember who told me this, but they said that essentially what we do, monkeys can do, because it's just looking at what's on source and comparing it to what's in the system, and you just click in a box. And when I heard that, it was like I knew then that the people at the top, they just don't get it, because they literally have created this analogy of what we do to something that monkeys could easily do. They literally think that it's like comparing and checking. And it's so much more, that. It's so much more.
It is so much more.
Right. To making sure that the whole story matches. It's not just a matter of what you put here and what's there, but does it make sense? Is there a trend or a pattern of things that don't add up? Is there, some type of misconduct going on? Is GCP compliance being acknowledged? Like, there's so much more that goes into it that they don't factor in. So in their mind, they might say, oh, you should be able to SDV 500 pages a day or 350 pages a day, right? Because you're just going through and checking boxes. But the reality is, especially with oncology, it might take you 2 days to get through the screening visit alone, just because of the medical history, the previous therapies, the previous procedures, all of these different things that the IE includes that you have to go through and make sure they don't have certain conditions, make sure that they meet certain criteria with their echo and their labs. I mean, the list goes on, and they don't factor that in. They just think you see this source, this piece of paper, you check this box, you're on to the next. So there's some type of huge disconnect between the work that we do and what the reality of the work is versus what they think is going on. And so when they create these numbers and these metrics and these timelines and these deliverables, is not truly realistic. I've been on studies where they'll say, oh, we need to enroll, not just screen, but enroll X amount of patients at every single site by the end of the year. And you and I both know that maybe if they said on average, it might work, but at every single site, there's always going to be some sites that don't even screen anybody.
That's true.
So to like put that pressure on every single site is just, it's almost like you're setting us up for failure, because that was never a realistic goal. So then everybody's like on edge, anxious, nervous to meet all these timelines, these goals, these deliverables that were never realistic in the first place. And I'm all definitely one for stretch goals. That's how I live my life, but you still have to create them within reason. And a lot of times there's just this, and I don't know if it's stakeholders, I don't know if it's board members, I don't know where, because I'm not on that side. So I don't know where that pressure comes in at. And I don't know how it feels to have people, investors and stuff saying, look, we need, it's the bottom line, right? You need revenue, you need profit. But at the same time, you want to create an environment where, people can be successful. And if you create goals that just aren't realistic, how can you have success?
You make a valid point. I know I can speak for me, and I can speak for my team, and I can speak for a lot of other peers, not just at my organization, but many other organizations. We want to set realistic goals. I just think that sometimes we don't always have the right data. And I don't think the data is that it's bad, that if someone has bad data, it's not that. I just think that no two situations are the same.
Right, right.
I think that is probably something that, and we sometimes make decisions, and I think we base that decision on all of the information we had available to us. But who knew COVID was going to happen, for example?
Right.
So in other words, the environment or the situation is constantly changing. Even though you based it on all, like you might have had an oncology trial for multiple myeloma, whatever, acute myeloid lymphocytic, I can't talk today, leukemia, whatever the case may be, ALL, AML, right? Let me go with acronyms today. So, and you might think that you have the right, and I used to oversee oncology, by the way, so this is really bad. And you might know that this is going to be my recruitment rate. These are the perfect sites. They did these studies before. However, you put this protocol there, it's just it's like the perfect storm. The study coordinators aren't engaged, or the PIs aren't engaged, or something is just not working, and that protocol is not enrolling as you had planned. That's when you need to learn to pivot and to find what is it that we need to do differently. And I agree with you. What we need to stop doing is putting pressure on people like you and other people about the enrollment. And what we need to do is work together to come up with solutions on how to improve the data, the quality, the enrollment, and those types of things. Putting pressure on you is not the solution.
Right.
As someone used to say to me all the time in my life, poor planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. I know you've heard that saying. I won't say he used to say that to me, but so that, and I used to tell my kids that just because you plan poorly, don't be rushing me out of the house. I'm taking my time. So I think that's something that we can learn as leaders. And I'm glad that you're telling me this because it resonates with me. I know I'm trying to do better. And that's, again, humility. I know that I don't know everything. I know that I have not done everything. And I know that I'm going to continue to keep learning. If I don't keep learning and growing, I can't help the people that I work with. Right. So thank you for giving me that feedback. More of us need to hear that.
No, thank you for asking the question. Because it's a lot of people in your position, they don't even ask the question, right? And to add to that, I would say, like, really truly looping in the investigators, because we have these little I call them formality meetings, where we'll bring everybody together and we give some like generic, we need patient speech, and it's like not, like, we know that, we get it, but it's not helpful, because if they had a patient, nobody is like just hoarding patients and not giving them treatments. I always say that because it's like when we go to these meetings, it's like, do you think people are really out here just hiding patients and not giving them the treatments? If they had them, they would most certainly present the study to them. But it's a matter of, how do you find these people? And then some of the people that you do find, they don't want to participate. So how do you educate them in feeling comfortable with participating on the study? So it's like this multifaceted problem that I feel like, the industry has gotten into this bad habit of like isolating different issues versus everybody coming together and collaborating from the start of the study, not at the middle or the end where it's a crisis. Right. You've been enrolling for 2 years and you got 10 patients. But at the very beginning, when you're like forming everything, when you're creating the protocol, when you're creating the strategy, when you're creating those numbers of how many patients you think you can recruit per month, bringing everybody in together, then I feel like would help create the change. And then carefully selecting sites, because myself and other colleagues, we'll do qualification selection visits. We don't recommend a site. And then the sponsor is like, well, this is a KOL, or this is a steering committee member, or we just need somebody. And then they just shoot. And it's like, we told you not to pick this person. Then here we go. We have to deal with all these deviations, and we're trying to harass them because they got a backlog of data for months that they still haven't entered. And, all these issues that we put in the report. I don't know if somebody read it or not, but that's another thing, like picking quality sites and not just having a number just to say, okay, we need 50 sites. So we just got to do what we got to do to get 50 sites, but really thinking about who you're choosing, who the investigator is. Are they truly engaged? Do they truly have the patient population? Because they all say they do at the investigator meeting. You go out to the they do. Oh, we can enroll 20. And then when it comes time to activate, it's like, well, we can't find anybody. It's like, well, what happened to
the 20 pages?
Right. And they do it time and time again, but like really digging into, do you truly have this patient population, not just the indication, but with the IE criteria in mind? Can they actually enroll in the study, not just
do they want to enroll? There's a difference. Not only do they qualify, but do they actually want to do the study? Like, do you have people think that would probably do the study, right?
Exactly. So I feel like all of those things, when they make the decisions at the top, I don't truly, and again, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they're factoring that in. I think it boils down to bottom line, which I get it. I'm working on starting my own business. I get it. You need a profit. You have to have revenue. I totally get it.
I think that we do, though. I think that we put those things in. I just think that for example, like we do want quality sites, but do we sometimes do we select sites? I don't want to say we never select sites that are not quality. I don't want to say that, but are there investigators that we feel that might bring a different value to the table? Let me put that, because everybody has their own value. Sure. Maybe some sites will bring you a lot of patients. Maybe some sites will bring you a lot of information, guidance about the disease. There's value in everybody, maybe from a different level, should I say. Maybe somebody won't bring you as many patients, but they will bring you 1 or 2 patients. So I think that's something that is always, I think we need to pivot quickly. Like I said, if we see a site and they're not going to enroll, they're not doing well, we need to just remove those sites and get sites that are going to be more engaged. I think we pick a number because we know that it takes this many sites to get to the number of enrollments. But we need that. So we need 50 sites. Then we say everybody's going to enroll 2 patients, whatever. If we see 2 or 3 sites that are not going to enroll, then I think we should be able to quickly remove them from the study and get sites that are going to enroll. So it's kind of like if you got a tree and it ain't, if you're doing an apple, then you're whatever, and you got all these trees out there and you got 20 trees and they don't bring no apples, then you need to plant 20 more trees or something. I don't know, but you got to be able to think differently and pivot. Yeah. So I agree with you, but I do think that we need to listen more to what the CRAs are putting. And I think that we're trying. I know that we try to, we listen to the reports from whatever the CRA managers or whoever's responsible for reviewing reports to give us that feedback and get it back to us. But I do think that sometimes relationships kind of make us make different decisions. So we might have a relationship or something. And again, I'm not speaking for my current company. I'm speaking for the industry and that. But I've just seen situations where we have selected sites, maybe because of, you're right, they are a KOL. They are very well known in the industry. And so you want to continue to build that relationship because they will bring value to the study. Maybe they won't only enroll 1 patient, but their value is so important because they will have so much knowledge about the indication. They might be on your steering committee. They might be able to bring interest in having them have a patient and might be able to, is just as valuable. So we have to look at their valuation, what their impact is, and all the things. But I do know that puts a lot of pressure on you to keep going back to this site. They don't do their data on time. They're difficult. And then we got to constantly have calls with them. I get it. It's kind of like, again, you have a business and you have this person that's a really good person that constantly comes in that business, spends a lot of money. Sometimes they get preferential treatment, not because they deserve it on their character, maybe because of what they spend or whatever the case may be. It's no different in this industry. I think no matter the industry, there's always those situations that you just got to figure out what's the way to approach it, what's the way to mitigate. So I understand.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's complicated, right?
That's it. Complicated.
Yeah. And it's not like one issue, it's many challenges. And then, like you said, it's constantly changing and evolving. Every study is different. It could be the same IP, but the protocols will create their own new challenges. And it's never ending, right? So I get it. I get it. But it's somehow I feel like we can all come together and just do a better job.
I agree. And I think that's what we're trying to do. I know that I'm trying to do a better job. The people that I work with are trying to do a better job. And I know the peers that I work with, I'm on different committees that's across the industry, and we're all trying to figure out how we can do better. There's people I've been working with for years that we're always looking at, like when we go to conferences, we're always trying to share information, share knowledge with one another so that we can improve. Because I don't think there is a company out there, they might differ with me, that has found the perfect nugget of, oh, we're the perfect. There is no, because what someone told me, you can't have a perfect company because we're imperfect people.
Right.
So even if it was a perfect company, as soon as some people walked in, it became imperfect because nobody's perfect. Right. So I don't think there's going to be a perfect company, but I do think we can strive for perfection. But I don't think there's going to be a perfect company, a perfect study. I just don't think it's possible, but I do think that we can strive for perfection.
Right. I agree. Well, I'm so glad you asked me and you added, your side of it as a VP, and then from the pharma side of things, because even with the CROs, the sponsors is what is kind of driving the things, because they're telling them like, hey, we need to do this by such and such date, or by such and such timeline. So that's good to know, that there are people like you that do care, because sometimes I feel like
we don't care.
Right. And I mean, if I'm being honest, sometimes I feel like it's just about money. And I think that's another challenge too, is getting people to be honest. A lot of people are scared to tell their managers how they truly feel because they don't want to get in trouble, or they don't want to lose their job, or, whatever the case may be. They're not being honest. And that, how can you guys make wise decisions if
you can't be honest?
Right.
Now, I can't say this, and I can say this with everything I believe in. I love that I don't manage by fear. I'm not managed by fear. I work in a company that's patient first driven. Mm-hmm. Now that I can say for not really the first time in my career, because I've had some really great opportunities as well, but in my current right now, I work for an organization that patient first. Every decision that we do, we think about the patient first. I can't say that. That's one thing I can say. And we don't manage by fear here. First of all, it's not even my character, which is why people ask me what made me choose Takeda. Takeda's in Boston. I live in Jersey. What made me choose Takeda? Takeda is something that was like a breath of fresh air. The people here manage by care, the other person, we believe in one another. Patient, trust, reputation, and business. That's our values. We don't dictate we don't go away from that. We don't pick nothing else. We don't add anything to it. And we truly trust one another. We are treated with respect. We're valued. Now, and people listen. I tell people, anyone that's in my department, no, at the end of like a town hall, I remind them, here's my cell phone. If you feel like you can text me, inbox me, call me, I don't care. And I've had people give me some really negative feedback, with good feedback. Like, hey, this is not a good thing. Now I can't, and I tell them straight, I might not be able to fix it. But what I can do is I can listen, and I can remember that as I make the next decision. Mm-hmm. So I can't change everything. I can't fix everything. There are systems that are challenged. There's always issues in this industry. I cannot fix everything, but what I can do is I can value your opinion. I can respect you as a person. I can listen to you, and I can do everything in my power to make it better for you. And that is why I'm at Takeda, because that's the kind of company I work for. And that's the kind of boss I have. So I agree. I have worked in situations where I was managed they tried to manage me by fear. And that didn't work for me, because I don't want to be treated that way. I don't want to treat other people that way. But I have worked in organizations, and those people are still managers. Don't ask me how, but that's how they treat their people. They manage by fear.
Right.
and that's not cool.
Right. Right. And it's just such a breath of fresh air to hear you, how you manage yourself, what type of leader you are, and then your company, and then the type of bosses and leaders that you have. Because sometimes, there's going to always be bad apples in every industry, right? Regardless of
Exactly.
teacher, whatever industry, Walmart, whatever, there'll always
Right.
be somebody.
There's always a bad apple. I don't care
Right,
where you're at. There's no yeah.
right, right.
But right.
But to hear you say that is just a reminder that there are people who care. There are people that are listening and, valuing your opinion and respecting it. And that's all you can ask for, right? But
Yes.
at the same time, people like me and coordinators, even study coordinators, investigators, whoever, they have to be honest and sharing their opinion too, because if you don't, how do you know, how can you fix a problem that you don't even know exists?
Right.
So I feel like it's kind of like it goes both ways. Everybody has to kind of do their part. So I'm
That's a
glad.
good point. I just think the only thing my advice would be to people is that when you want to give somebody feedback, if you want to give, like, if you say, I don't, I'm scared to say something, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Now, I have had people give me feedback, on my team, not here, in other companies. And I'm like, wow, that was a little abrupt. You didn't have to say, like, you could be like, dear Karen, this system is blah, blah, blah. They're just, going in. No, that's not how you do that. It could be like, hey, I want to give you, give you a little bit of feedback. We were just trained on a new system, and I found it to be a little challenging because of, and here's the 5 bullets.
Right.
Speak, get to the facts. It's very hard to manage the, whatever. I'm just making up stuff like
Right,
it's
right,
very
right.
hard to, get through. The training wasn't as well. It requires a lot of blah, blah, blah. And be specific, but it's like, I just think some people need to work on their tactfulness, and those types of things. And so it's the delivery. Everything is in your delivery. And
Right.
so sometimes people delivery, I can't even get to the content of what you're saying. If you send something to me and it didn't come correct, I'm like, that's not pretty cool. I wouldn't approach it that way. That's the best way you could come.
Right. Right.
It's just like me. If I want to give back to my boss, I'm like,
Right.
So.
Right. That's very that's another great point. And that's something that I also try to work with my clients on, is not, people always think about the hard skills, but you also have to think about the soft skills as well, because those are things that oftentimes, I'm not going to say they can't be taught, but you might have to go a little bit deeper with like therapy and stuff to change those characteristics or those traits. So and I definitely try to be mindful of that too, but I can say that I've had some pretty nasty managers, and it's hard for you to practice those soft skills when they're coming at you in this ugly, derogatory, demeaning way, just because they feel like they're here and you're there. So that's another challenge, right? How do you respond when your boss or manager is the one that's coming at you like that,
Been there. It takes time. The Karen 25 years ago is not the Karen today. I had to grow to those. I've had a lot of, I don't want to say just managers, maybe just people that I worked with. Maybe like it was a clinician or some type of other person from another department that was a higher ranking person than I was, or whatever. And, they saw me as a nobody or whatever the case may be, and treated me with such negativity. And I had to like find myself and like, wow, okay, let me see what I'm gonna do with this. But I realized that I just packaged that all up, and I just realized that the way they are does not detect on who I really am. And I know that the only way that I can rise above this is kind of like what Michelle Obama said: when they go low, you go high. That was probably the best. I'm going to constantly say that. I mean, I didn't notice coin it that way, but she coined it perfectly. And that's kind of something I've had to learn to do. And that's actually my advice I would give to people who are trying to move to that CRA position or stuff too, is like, sometimes you have to be you just got to be humble, because I just think you get more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. And being that humble person, people say, oh, that doesn't get you, being nice don't get you anywhere. And I disagree with them. I absolutely disagree. I absolutely disagree. I think being nice do get you somewhere. You don't have to let nobody take advantage of you. Now, that's a different story. I'm not saying let people take advantage of you or something like that. Someone is disrespectful to you, I've had someone say something to me. I've had some things said to me that was extremely disrespectful. And I just respectfully, responded in a way that was like, I checked them, but so respectfully, they couldn't even say that. They were like, wow, did she just say that? But it was just the way I did that. But I didn't know how to do that 30 years ago. So just, as we started this conversation, we're talking about people who are trying to get to the CRA role. They're trying to cross over. I just want to remind them that interview is where all of this comes in. Because like you said, you might not be able to teach them the soft skills. They might not know about the eye contact. They might not know about how to articulate. They might not have been taught to be able to speak in a way that will provide them confidence and character, that someone is, intrigued on bringing them on their team. But you are selling yourself. And when I mean selling yourself, selling your skills and your talent, and so you need to be able to have someone go, I want him or her on my team. How do I get her? How do I get him?
Right. 100%. I agree 100%. And I'm looking at the time. I know
we went so over. I know
I'm taking up so much of your time. But I did want to at least give you an opportunity to kind of talk about some of first, work-life balance. Like, how do you manage it all? Because you have a family, you have all these things that you're doing. And not only, your full-time job, but then your boards and volunteer opportunities and pageantry. Like, how do you talk about some of those things? How do you balance it all?
I do it all. Lots of schedules, tons of schedules. I realize that, there's so many things I want to do, and there's so much I want to give back. So that's how I got on boards. East Carolina University, if anyone's seen a couple of podcasts, I've done so many. When I was in college, I went homeless. ECU made sure I graduated. So I will always be indebted to East Carolina University. So I'm on the alumni board there. I make sure I find time for that. Make sure I find time for that university to help me be the woman and the person I am today in my career. So that's the first thing. So I just find time and I just build it in. In reference to being on boards, you just, you find different things that you want to volunteer. Now, when I had younger kids, I wasn't able to do as much of those things because I was running from cheerleading practice to soccer and swim meets. It was a little bit different. But now my youngest is 21, so I can now really do me. So I give back a lot into my communities at the time. When I get off work, I focus on different things. Yes, I do pageantry. That is my way to just be me, which I love to do, and also to volunteer in the community. I just signed up for my next pageant. So yes, I'll be competing next year for another pageant. I know, right? I haven't even announced it yet on my social media, so I can't disclose, but I just paid my fee. So
that's awesome. But this just so you know, if it makes you feel better, by the time this episode comes out, you'll probably will have announced.
I will have already announced it. Yeah. Okay. So I'm doing New Jersey, America. So,
awesome.
Yeah. So I've done Cosmos, I've done International, I've done United States. So I've done All Americans. I'm like, yeah, let me see. I'm gonna do America now. So gotta prepare myself for that.
Amazing. That is so amazing. I feel like other CRAs that I talk to, people in the industry, they feel like they don't have time to do anything else. Like,
I didn't have a lot of time when I was a CRA, but I also realized that I didn't make time. You have to make time for yourself. It's just like working out. It's just like exercising. You got to make time. Yeah. You could sleep late. You could binge on TV. You could just, whatever, but you got to make time. You got to make time to clean your house. You got to make time to work out. You got to make time to take care of yourself. Those are things you just have to make time. You have to make a schedule. But just, how when you were a monitor and you made a schedule, I mean, I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna look at the informed consents. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this and this. And then I'm gonna plan out that whole 8-hour day. That's how you got to plan out your day. You got to plan out, you just have to plan everything. It's kind of like if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That's in everything. So it's beyond your career. It's about even, and I tell people to really have a work-life balance. I think that's what keeps us young. I really, truly think that's what people say, oh, how do you stay young? Because I have a work-life balance. I love to travel. I love to do things. Love volunteering. I love doing stuff. So me and my husband, we're constantly doing stuff. That's what I think keeps us young. And I try to take care of myself because I know that, I don't get another chance at this life.
Right.
So
right. That's so true, having that balance, because I feel like, especially as a new monitor, I definitely didn't have any balance. It was like literally all work. And it definitely takes a toll. It took a toll on me physically, mentally, emotionally. So I had to find my way to kind of get back balanced. And so many people struggle, and then they never find that balance, and then they end up quitting. I've known several monitors, a few that went through my training program with me, and they didn't even make it to that 3-month mark. They just, they get so overwhelmed, so burnt out. So that's another thing. People think they want to be a CRA, right? They think it's prestigious and lucrative, and they get to travel, but
right, but they don't really know.
Right. So being sure that, do you really want to be a CRA? Like, do you really know what you're getting into?
Do you really want to be a VP? Do you really want hundreds of emails a day and tons of meetings from the time you wake up till the time you finish that day? And then you have to read your emails at night and respond and whatever. Do you really want all of that? It's got to be like, it's all in what you want. When you look at, I think I was looking at like this one thing about a podcast about this athlete, and he's like, do you really know? I train 4 or 5 hours a day, and then I do this and I eat this and I do. So it's kind of like, again, the iceberg, you see all that on the top, but look at all that stuff below that it took to get there. It's not, thing is not, whatever. It takes hard work.
It does. And that's where the success comes in at, right? The things that people don't see, that they don't know about, people don't really think about that. And before we wrap things up, I definitely wanted to get your take on education. And whether, you advise getting that graduate level degree, you yourself have a PhD, do you advise on the doctoral level degree? How, do you feel about advanced level degrees in terms of, number one, being a CRA, and then number two, if you're looking to go beyond that CRA role into management, directorship, VP, C-suite, what have you?
To be very honest, if I feel that if you want to just be a CRA and that's where you want to stay and you just want continuing education because you just want to continue education, then go for it. If you're looking to advance in your degree, again, remember I talked about separating yourself from the other people. What separates you from someone else? So it's your experience, it's your training and education, and it's your delivery, what you bring to the table. And so you have those 3 things. And so if you've already got you can't change the number of years of experience you got. That's where you're at. That's where you're at. So if you want to change your education, you can focus on changing your education. So I'm a proponent of people getting a little bit more education beyond their bachelors if they can. I just think it is advantageous for them. I think it helps you think and critically help you with your critical thinking. Learn about pressures and strategy. It's just, I think you just gain a lot. I'm not saying you need to get your doctorate or your PhD or your PharmD or whatever. I'm not saying that, but I do think beyond your bachelor's is probably something you want to think about. There's a lot of certificate programs at some really good schools like Cornell and some of the other good Ivy League schools, or some other schools have really good certificate programs. There's executive MBAs. There's a lot of different programs, but find what you want to do and then find the education that you think will help you in that area. So I'm a proponent of that if you're trying to move up, because I can honestly say if you're trying to get to a different level, you gotta play. Yeah, it pays to play. Unfortunately, just being honest, it pays to play. You gotta,
No. I appreciate the honesty. Because that's another question I get frequently. some people don't. I also unfortunately have a lot of people that they say they've been a study coordinator for like 15, 20 years and they don't have a bachelor's.
I
And
have so many people that reached out to me. I had tons of openings for some roles, and I reached out on this LinkedIn thing, and all these people were sending me stuff, and I had like 4 or 5 really great candidates. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about to see if they had a degree. 2 of them didn't have a degree, and I felt bad. I'm like, we are not even going to consider you. You don't have a degree. You're not getting any pharma. I don't know a pharma company that's going to hire you without a degree. Don't know one.
Yep. And it's unfortunate or fortunate, whichever way you want to look at it. But I tell people all the time that, like, if you've been, for example, that study coordinator for 15, 20 years, nobody's saying you got to go to Harvard and get some type of neuroscience degree. Just get a degree. And there's, like you said, there's so many online programs. You could have been over 20 years, you could take one class a semester. And you would have
I don't understand.
Bachelor's by now.
I can't put my finger on it. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have your bachelor's? And I don't mean that in a negative way, but I agree with you.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I try to get people to understand is like, I don't see it doesn't change how good I am. I said, well, can you drive a car without a license? I don't care how good you drive. Can you drive a car?
Oh my God, that is. Oh, I'm gonna start using that one. That is.
There's just certain things out there that requires you to have whatever it takes. I mean,
and that is the best example. You are so right. You could be a great driver, but
you can't get on the roads in the 50 states I know without a license. So I mean, I know that's just probably one that's probably going to offend some people, but I'm just being honest. There's so many examples like that. That's what you have to give people. Again, give people reality. Like, just give it reality.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm all about, because you don't want to. I feel like it sets people up for failure if you can't give them the truth. And like you said, it's not being mean or facetious or any of those things. But if you truly want, if this is your goal and this is what you truly want, you have to get a bachelor's degree. You just have to.
You have to. You got to get a bachelor's degree. You can get it in basket weaving. I don't care, but you need a bachelor's degree.
Right.
No, I would not say bachelor's degree. I'm just messing. But you really should get a bachelor's degree. Right. And I know some people are scared of school. Maybe they did not do well in school, but when I went to school is way different than school today. Absolutely. There are some extremely good programs out there. I went to school 3 different ways. All 3 of my degrees were done differently. And that's why I can say that. So my bachelor's was at East Carolina University on campus, the normal traditional way, go through school, right? My master's, I got on the weekends that you go to school every Saturday and Sunday from 8 to 5.
Oh, wow.
Completely different. My PhD, I got online and virtual. So I went through 3 different types of educational systems. To be honest with you, the one that I went online was probably my hardest one. Not because it was my PhD, but because I had to do a lot of learning, because you got like just a little bit of time. And so everything else was like, oh yeah, you read these 30 articles. And I was like, oh my gosh, and write a paper and explain this. And I'm like, oh my God. So it seemed even harder. I was like, can I go back and sit in a classroom and you teach me? Like, it was different. But my interesting is that I was able to see all 3 different types of,
right,
educational, but
right.
I did what I had to do.
Right.
I gave up my Saturdays and Sundays as a mother with little kids.
Wow.
To get my master's.
Wow.
For 2.5 years. So don't give me that you don't have time. I can't balance it. Well, no. I drop my kids off at grandparents, husband, whoever. Everybody was helping me with my kids for 2.5 years, so I could go to school to get my master's. That was it. I didn't get to hang out. I didn't get to do nothing. I didn't get to go to all the events. I missed weddings. I missed all kinds of stuff because I wanted my master's. That was a sacrifice I chose to make.
Right. Wow.
That's what it is. It's about sacrifices.
And I'm glad you pointed that out. Number one, that there's multiple platforms for getting a degree. You don't have to go on a campus and sit in a class. What works for you and your lifestyle and schedule, figure it out. Somebody has it out there, pursue it. And then number 2, for the people that say, well, I'm a mom, I have kids, or I have a family, or whatever excuse they come up with. So I don't have time. I mean, you're the prime example of it all. There's no excuse, right? No excuse.
None. I did. And I'm not going to say I didn't have a support system. My kid's father and his mom, they helped a lot, whatever. But it was not easy. Trust me. It was nothing like for me to put my kids to bed and I just worked. And now I'm reading homework and I'm like, falling asleep in bed, trying to get my articles done or get my paperwork done or study for whatever it is. And then jump back up and get to work. And all during that time, I still had to work.
Right.
And help the kids with their homework and their projects. It's all about choices. Everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. Yeah. And I was at a event one time, and this is probably the best advice, and I'll probably end with this, is that you become that with whom you associate. So if you put yourself in a circle with other people that is trying to achieve the same types of goals, whatever they are, you 9 times out of 10 will achieve those goals. But if you put yourself in a circle of 3 negative people, you're going to be number 4. You put yourself in a circle with 3 broke people, you're going to become the 4th. Like you have to put yourself in that. I'm just keeping it real. Put yourself in that environment. If it's about weight loss, why do you tell people, why do they tell you to get a buddy system? Right. They tell you that so that you can finish it. It's in if you look at programs, that's where success comes from. I have a circle of people that I am still, I call them for advice, that I text, people that I used to be their boss, but they're like my peers now. And I'm like, hey, what would you do in this environment? How do I do this? How do I do? You have to keep that circle going. Find your circle of successful women or men, and you use that to leverage you. Get away from them naysayers because they're not going to help you.
No. Wow. The best advice ever. Wow. Well, I didn't expect for us to go into
I know, almost 2 hours of talking, but I gotta come to North Carolina so we can hang out and have girls chat time.
Yes, this is amazing. Well, any final words? I feel like that was a good final note. Anything else you want to add before?
No, it's been a pleasure and an honor.